Hydraulic fracturing, or fracking, represents a new source of domestic energy. But how safe is this source, and what do we really know about it?
Usually, this fracturing involves pumping millions of gallons of chemically treated water into deep shale formations. We're talking a mile or more underground at extremely high pressures. This fluid cracks the shale or widens existing cracks, freeing the hydrocarbons and making a path for them to flow toward the well.
While there are some benefits to fracking, corporations ignore the risk factors due to fracking's immense profitability as a practice.
Improperly bored or sealed wells have contaminated drinking water in several sites in the U.S., resulting in energy companies being fined for polluting water supplies.
The contamination is so severe that the water cannot even be cleaned in a treatment plant.
Pollutants are not the only risk that come with fracking. We do not fully comprehend the seismic effects that it has on the earth below us.
Some U.S. states like Oklahoma, Texas, and Colorado have been experiencing a significant rise in seismic activity, which seems to be corresponding to the fracking boom.
While the evidence isn't necessarily conclusive, it certainly shows a troubling trend that has been happening in the Midwest. Though I have been talking about fracking in the abstract, it is a very real problem for many communities across the United States, including that of Cove Point, Maryland.
Dominion Resources, a Virginia-based energy corporation, is hoping to turn around the dormant natural gas import facility at Cove Point into a massive $3.8 billion liquefied natural gas export facility.
The construction and operation of LNGs brings about an industrial accident risk factor that may not be extremely common, but is extremely devastating.
In 1944, the explosion of LNG tanks in Cleveland, Ohio left 130 dead. In 2004, an explosion at the export terminal in Skikda, Algeria, killed 27. And in March of 2014, an accident in Plymouth, Washington injured workers and prompted a large evacuation of the area.
While an evacuation would protect the people of Cove Point, it would not protect the surrounding properties and habitats of the animals that live there. Additionally, there is a major concern with the planned evacuation route in the event of an industrial accident.
Evacuation is a chief safety concern for residents surrounding Dominion's proposed export terminal. In fact, for more than 265 Lusby homes, the evacuation route during an emergency would be toward the facility. And the fear of an industrial accident at Dominion's export terminal is well warranted.
Building an LNG results in a great amount of pressure and tension to be on a community due to the risk factors. Dominion Energy could take steps in order to minimize this tension and pressure, but they have not done so, as other LNGs have done in the past.
In Freeport, they actually did a 1.5-mile radius and offered to buy out houses of anybody that lived within 1.5 miles of their facility. People had a choice. They either paid market value for the house plus $25,000, or if people don't want to move, they are writing them a check for $25,000 for the construction inconvenience. Bottom line is, they're making it safe to have 1.5 mile buffer around their property, and if people don't want to leave, that's their choice. If they do, they get a fair deal to get the heck out.
The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has jurisdiction over issues like the building of LNGs, but as of now, they have voted to allow this to happen.
The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission announced its final permit okaying construction of the radical frac gas export facility at Cove Point in southern Maryland, despite mounds of testimony and scientific data showing that this $3.8 billion facility would incentivize harmful fracking throughout our region and increase smog. FERC refused even to conduct an environmental impact statement for this project.
We can only hope that those carrying out the fracking begin to understand its environmental impact, as directional driller Colin Bennett clearly does not.
Yeah, people are of the opinion that whatever fracking materials they're using are bad for the environment. I believe that's the big scare. I couldn't tell you much about it, to be honest with you.
Colin is just one of the drillers who makes over $250,000 every year. And where does that money go?
1, 2, 3, 2.
It's over.
God!
2 hundo.
Hate you.
There we go.
You just saw correctly. That was a $200 game of rocks, paper, scissors. We cannot blame Mr. Bennett for what he chooses to do with his money, but we can observe where the vast majority of this money goes that the LNG would bring in to the state of Maryland.
The city never sleeps, and you can like completely maximize my limited amount of time off. Like if I'm only off for a couple days, I can definitely fit a lot into a couple days in Las Vegas.
Now that we understand this process and the people who put it in place, what can we do to get rid of it? I want to petition the chairman of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, Norman Bay, to stop this practice at Cove Point and eventually across the U.S. Hydraulic fracturing represents a unique opportunity for the U.S. to cut off its reliance on imported energy sources. We need to ask ourselves, at what cost are we willing to do this? And why don't we consider the sources that are all around us? Hydro energy, solar energy, and wind energy. Together, we can make a difference.